The anemone tendrils you see in the test really just are Sully's hair. The hairs are fat. They're a different color. They're tapered at the end, and they're being pulled up instead of pushed down by gravity, and they're waving around. Other than that, it's really just hair. The final anemone was much more complicated than that. Each tendril is really a cloth sac. There's a lot more control over how they move, and of course they look completely different. The tendrils getting out of the way of the little ball as it goes through is an automatic thing. Nobody had to animate that. The simulation just does that. Most of the time, once you get it set up, that works pretty well, but sometimes, well, I really don't want this tendril here, I have to get out of the way.
There were definitely some situations where the tendrils around the characters didn't do the right thing just out of the simulation. So Cameron Miyazaki, one of our new guys, we gave him the challenge of animating the tendrils. He animated them beautifully well, and that's what you see in the film today. 99% simulation and 1% animation.
To light the reef, it takes probably about 10 broad lights, but then when you add the characters, it could take up to 100 or more. There's a key light, which is kind of an overall bright light that determines the direction of the light. There'll be the caustic light, the dancing light on the ground that's coming through the water. There's also a bounce light, usually from the sand. It's kind of a low-level bounce coming back up onto your props and fish. There'll be an overall kind of bluish fill. There's the murk and the fog lights. And when you put all those together, you get this gorgeous-looking reef.
Back in A Bug's Life, we discovered that presenting nature on screen meant simplification. We went diving, and we discovered that a coral reef could be broken down into 3 simple ideas: tall vertical things, big flat horizontal things, and round masses. So if you ignore the ground plane and the ceiling that is the ocean surface, you could have a 3-dimensional environment where you had those 3 ideas that you could present to an audience. That was our formula for constructing the coral reef.
I wanted to spend some time with him. So I said, let's go take a walk. And so my little 5-year-old and we went out, and we were just going to walk down about 2 blocks to the park. And I thought, oh, some father-son time. And I spent the whole walk just going, oh, stay away from the curb. Don't touch that. You don't know where that's been. Oh, careful from that. Oh, there's a car. Oh, be careful of that branch. You know, and I just spent the whole time correcting him and overprotective and making sure he didn't get hurt. And I just remember this other part of myself, watching myself going, you are just losing every opportunity. You're just missing out right now on being present with your son. And that I couldn't stop thinking about that. And I thought, geez, you know, here I am just wanting so badly to be a good father, yet I'm not achieving that. And so I thought, what a ironic dilemma. I thought, you know, fear can deny a good father from being one. And that intrigued me. And that became the missing link to putting all the pieces together for what ultimately became Finding Nemo. I just always remember looking at fish and sensing how much light went through them. So that was one of the first things I sort of threw at them. I said, can we make that?
What makes fish look so different from just a piece of plastic, basically, is that there's several layers working together with light to create this look.
And for a long time, we didn't have a word for it, a phrase for it. And finally, I was just like, well, it's like gummy bears. It's like when you put the gummy bears, you can hold a light. And so it ended up becoming the catchphrase. We just called it the gummy effect.
Father and Nemo, their illumination is probably 80% this gummy substance in them, and then we just augment with surface lighting to get it to look like, you know, they've got some sort of surface on top of all that so you can read their face. Because if they're too gummy, then you can't see any detail, you can't read any expression. So it's like finding that right balance to get them to look like they're both glowy and readable at the same time.
An important feeling of underwater, especially like World War II ships that end up at the bottom of the ocean, is that they rest and they decay. Smacking in of a huge great white shark into a door would release a bunch of sort of rust particles, silt, which had settled onto that stuff, would get knocked up, and the water would get a lot murkier locally in the area, and then you see the silt kind of puff up and then settle back out. The key thing about doing silts and making it believable really has to do not so much with how it gets kicked up. Dust also responds on top of your refrigerator. You smack top of the fridge, dust will kick up in the air. It has to do with how it settles out. And things slow down a lot faster in water. Water is way more viscous than air, as people know. And so when Bruce the Shark knocks silt off a door or off the ground or something, as it is ejected into the water around him, it sort of flies in quickly, but then immediately slows down, is eased out by the water, and then gently settles out due to gravity. But once it's in the air, Bruce's tail then sort of swims by and kicks it. It also reacts to that as well. Keeping track of all those dynamic interactions underwater is quite difficult to do. We spent a lot of time and attention to make that look believable. And when it's done right in a shot, suddenly that adds a whole different additional level of believability to being underwater, which is a key story point in the film.
What did you think when you found out that a character had been named after you?
I think it's great. I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag because she's kind of is it the word villain? I have played a million practical jokes on Mr. Andrew Stanton, and I think it's just his way of getting me back.
These 3 tiki heads are actual caricatures of Pixar employees. Andrew was very clear that he wanted this shot like we've never done before at Pixar, and so we used an extremely wide lens, which allowed us to get the camera really close to everything in the tank. And we're moving incredibly fast through a very small space, hitting very specific visual marks to tie in with his story.
From a lighting perspective, the shot also presents a difficult challenge insofar as there are setups for inside the tank clean, inside the tank with algae, outside the tank in the air, outside the tank in the baggie moving indoors and outdoors in several sets.
We used a tool called Pisces, which simulates the behavior of the fish. We would set up a bunch of basic parameters where the school would be, how fast they should swim, and then simulate and do iterations of that until we got something we liked. The number of fish that we would simulate would vary from 5 for a little small school in the reef to a couple thousand for some of the big hero schools and background schools. There was a lot of simulations where we would put a lot of fish in and then just kill the ones that were misbehaving. So basically, hundreds of CG fish died to make this movie.
You wouldn't know to get there, would you?
Well, we needed to figure out how jellyfish moved for one, and that was kind of what this was all about. And this was also to figure out give them something to figure out all of the dynamics down below with.
We began by taking simple steers as stand-ins for jellyfish and sprinkling them in the volume and pointing a camera that direction. We had no idea how complicated the path was going to be from that attempt at a simplistic view of the set to fully realizing the set with all the jellies moving all different directions, the camera flying through that in 3 dimensions, with no reference for ground plane, ceiling, or walls, the characters interacting with the jellies being see-through, and the whole thing together became quite a messed up tangle.
Quite a Pandora's box, this little guy right here. But it was worth it because it's beautiful in the film. It's a beautiful scene.
One of the most important elements to make the tank look believable in the set that it was in was the use of reflections and refractions, looking from outside in and inside back out. We took both videotape footage, stuck our heads in tanks, stuck our heads outside tanks, and stared at the fish in the tank bed downstairs to really get a sense for how the image gets worked into sort of by the glass and water interface. The effect itself, the physics are well understood. To do it in computer graphics cheaply is hard, and especially to cheat it so we can control it, which is one of the key things about it. And so we weren't able to just duplicate physics directly. We need to put controls into adjust it in budget.
Thank you.
There. That should do it. And I just realized that we're being videotaped now. And when I say we, I mean me. So this is perfect.
A penguin course that are to make now. Get the home stay big making Sid the Science Kit 56 Daniel Tiger Neighborhood Link Broken Lip Frontier Communications TV channel surfing behind down Mort Penguins Great They You Are video damage there to make sure flowers lessons of fun.
Yay! Yay!
There. It's all right. It'll be okay.
If you really wanted to do a shot like the whale tongue shot, you would really need billions of particles of water, but we can't do that. We can at most do millions. And so we have a lot of tricks that go into taking this fairly coarse screen, different dynamics, turning it into a surface as the surface moves around, and then cheating the transition in various ways of the surface from a solid surface of water breaking down into spray and then splashing off.
This is the Aeolus 3. It's the name of my father's sailboat, and I'm embarrassed to say that it was the 11th hour when I suddenly realized I did not put that on any of the boats in the movie. So we changed one of the boats at the last second and got it in there. I think I would have been disowned had I forgotten that.
Here's Sam!
In a big action scene.
Wiggle! Fit down.
I think this was 3-1.
Feel.
The
pause.
Basic action that needed to happen. Take off seagulls.
See, Casper, Blanket, yeah, Timas,
lost on the ground, panning, seeing them go by,
hey, move out, you, Ananisi.
Broke it out into like what we call hero shots and crowd shots. Justin and the whole crowd group would get together and they would do the huge crowds of fish away from the net or in the net. Most of the close-up shots were hand animated.
The net itself, though, is in some shots hero because we couldn't get that kind of close connection between net and fish without animating by hand. But in far shots is done simulated. But of course, the simulator doesn't do it all exactly right. Some fish have their tails sticking out, some fish get stuck outside the net and want to go back in, which is of course completely insane. So you have to kill those fish and clip the other fish off to make them fit inside the net shape. And there was a whole team of folks who had to work on that stuff with animators to make sure that the amount of activity in the fish and which they were in the scene, how it all controlled through the scene across all those cuts.